Good afternoon. No. No chicken today. Because it's a chilled out, just a couple of hours more reading of The War of the Worlds by h.g.wells. No channel point redemptions. Also, that's the wrong scene. And also, I haven't sorted this out. Hang on. There we go. That's better. Check out my new t-shirt that I got yesterday. It's double XL. I mean, I'm not double XL, but it does sort of fit okay. So that's good. Cine, welcome. How are we doing? Oh, Leo, thank you for that host. That was a very quick host, wasn't it? Oh, I can get rid of the follower goal now. Although I did see earlier that it has actually dropped to 300 as opposed to 301. That shirt is love. I know, right? It only cost me £10 as well. Complete bargain. Hello, Jane. Jane Astix. How you doing? Cine, thank you for the host as well. So yeah, guys. I sort of this is like a little this is an ongoing experiment. Hello, Eve. Thank you for that shout out to Jane. It's an ongoing experiment. I'm just going to be spending a few streams every other Sunday. So we did this 2 weeks ago, and we read up to chapter 8 of The War of the Worlds by h.g.wells. In this nice slim copy here. So we're about that far into the book. You can see there, like that. I'm just going to be reading some more of it today, and you can hang out. I'll be reading a chapter at a time, and then between chapters, we'll just be talking about what's just happened. If you have any questions, I will try and answer them. We can discuss it. Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, I stream so much as it is that I don't really want to make it every Sunday, but I think every other Sunday works out just well. And I got positive reviews the first time I did it. Apologies for the lighting, by the way. I've got my windows and curtains open just because it's actually a bit warm today. And it's no point me putting the lights on or anything. The candles worked well last time, but I could do with just sitting in a well-lit room today, so no candles. Space Bunny, thank you for the shout-outs. Eve, thank you for the shout-outs. There you go. Yeah, if I'm reading, I will catch up with chat at the end of the current chapter. I'm not ignoring you. So I think without further ado, I can just begin, can't I? I feel like I can move this over here. Now that the follower goal is gone, I can make this... Does it go... Does the chat stretch up? No, that is as far as it goes. Okay, no, that's fine. That works. And I will put the alert over here instead. Just realised this picture isn't quite... There we go. Okay, yeah, we're good. Let us begin. Well, not begin. We're starting at chapter 9. So, wherever you missed... oh, crap, the book just closed on me. There we go. Yeah, it's going to go until 4 o'clock. Or maybe I'll just make it 8 chapters at a time, but maybe that'll work out being 2 hours anyway. If you've missed chapters 1 to 9... 1 to 8, they are on my YouTube as a VOD. Enjoy Storytime with Robo. Thank you, Space. I hope people will. If you don't enjoy it, well, just keep that to yourself. 4 p.m. for you. Oh, well... wait, what? Oh, wait, yeah. The first Sunday of October... Our clock, the clocks change in the UK, don't they? But wait, no, this isn't the first Sunday of October. When did the clocks change? Did they change? Cine, you're like an hour ahead? So when it's 4 p.m. here, it'll be 5 p.m. for you, won't it? Oh, I don't know. This will be going for 2 hours. It's currently 2 p.m., just after 2 p.m. here in the UK. So I think I'm just going to start reading. It is 4 p.m. for me in Finland. I am 2 hours ahead. Oh, I see. It's 4 p.m. for you right now. I see. Okay. Cool. Okay. Chapter 9. The Fighting Begins. Saturday lives in my memory as a day of suspense. It was a day of lassitude 2, hot and close, with, I am told, a rapidly fluctuating barometer. I had slept but little, though my wife had succeeded in sleeping, and I rose early. I went into my garden before breakfast and stood listening. but towards the common there was nothing stirring but a lark. The milkman came as usual. I heard the rattle of his chariot, and I went round to the side gate to ask the latest news. He told me that during the night the Martians had been surrounded by troops and that guns were expected. Then, a familiar reassuring note, I heard a train running towards Woking. "They aren't to be killed," said the milkman, "if that can possibly be avoided." I saw my neighbour gardening, chatted with him for a time, and then strolled in to breakfast. It was a most unexceptional morning. My neighbour was of opinion that the troops would be able to capture or to destroy the Martians during the day. "It's a pity they make themselves so unapproachable," he said. "It would be curious to learn how they live on another planet. We might learn a thing or two." He came up to the fence and extended a handful of strawberries, for his gardening was as generous as it was enthusiastic. At the same time, he told me of the burning of the pine woods about the Byfleet golf links. "They say," said he, "that there's another of those blessed things fallen there, number 2. But one's enough, surely. This lot'll cost the insurance people a pretty penny before everything's settled." He laughed with an air of the greatest good humour as he said this. The woods, he said, were still burning, and pointed out a haze of smoke to me. "They will be hot underfoot for days on account of the thick soil of pine needles and turf," he said, and then grew serious over poor Ogilvy. After breakfast, instead of working, I decided to walk down towards the common. Under the railway bridge, I found a group of soldiers, sappers, I think, men in small round caps, dirty red jackets, unbuttoned, and showing their blue shirts, dark trousers, and boots coming to the calf. They told me no one was allowed under the canal, and, looking along the road towards the bridge, I saw one of the cardigan men standing sentinel there. I talked with these soldiers for a time. I told them of my sight of the Martians on the previous evening. None of them had seen the Martians, and they had but the vaguest ideas of them, so that they plied me with questions. They said that they did not know who had authorized the movements of our troops. Their idea was that a dispute had arisen at the Horse Guards. The ordinary sapper is a great deal better educated than the common soldier, and they discussed the peculiar conditions of the possible fight with some acuteness. I described the heat ray to them, and they began to argue among themselves. "Crawl up under cover and rush 'em, I say," said one. "Get out," said another. "What's cover against this here What's cover against this here heat? Sticks to cook you. What we got to do is to go as near as the ground'll let us, and then drive a trench." "Blow your trenches. You always want trenches. You ought to have been born a rabbit, Snippy." "Ain't they got any necks then?" said a third abruptly, a little, contemplative, dark man smoking a pipe. I repeated my description. "Octopuses," said he. "That's what I calls 'em. Talk about fishes of men. Fighters of fish it is this time." "It ain't no murder killing beast like that," said the first speaker. "Why not shell the darn things straight off and finish them?" said the little dark man. "You can't tell what they might do." "Where's your shells?" said the first speaker. "There ain't no time. Do it in a rush, that's my tip, and do it at once." So they discussed it. After a while I left them, and went on to the railway station to get as many morning papers as I could. But I will not weary the reader with a description of that long morning and of the longer afternoon. I did not succeed in getting a glimpse of the common, for even Horsell and Chobham Church towers were in the hands of the military authorities. The soldiers I addressed didn't know anything. The officers were mysterious as well as busy. I found people in the town quite secure again in the presence of the military, and I heard for the first time from Marshall, the tobacconist, that his son was among the dead on the common. The soldiers had made the people on the outskirts of Horsell lock up and leave their houses. I got back to lunch about 2, very tired, for, as I have said, the day was extremely hot and dull, and in order to refresh myself, I took a cold bath in the afternoon. About 4:30, I went up to the railway station to get an evening paper, for the morning papers had contained only a very inaccurate description of the killing of Stent, Henderson, Ogilvy, and the others. But there was little I didn't know. The Martians did not show an inch of themselves. They seemed busy in their pit, and there was a sound of hammering and an almost continuous streamer of smoke. Apparently, they were busy getting ready for a struggle. Fresh attempts have been made to signal, but without success, was the stereotyped formula of the papers. A sapper told me it was done by a man in a ditch with a flag on a long pole. The Martians took as much notice of such advances as we should of the lowing of a cow. I must confess the sight of all this armament, all this preparation, greatly excited me. My imagination became belligerent, and defeated the invaders in a dozen striking ways. Something of my schoolboy dreams of battle and heroism came back. It hardly seemed a fair fight to me at the time. They seemed very helpless in this pit of theirs. About 3 o'clock, there began the thud of a gun at measured intervals from Chertsey or Addlestone. I learned that the smouldering pine wood into which the second cylinder had fallen was being shelled, in the hope of destroying that object before it opened. It was only about 5, however, that a field gun reached Chobham for use against the first body of Martians. About 6 in the evening, as I sat at tea with my wife in the summer house, talking vigorously about the battle that was lowering upon us, I heard a muffled detonation from the common, and immediately after a gust of firing. Close on the heels of that came a violent rattling crash, quite close to us, that shook the ground, and, starting out upon the lawn, I saw the tops of the trees about the Oriental College burst into smoky red flame, and the tower of the little church beside it slide down into ruin. The pinnacle of the mosque had vanished, and the roof line of the college itself looked as if a 100-ton gun had been at work upon it. One of our chimneys cracked as if a shot had hit it, flew, and the piece of it came clattering down the tiles and made a heap of broken red fragments upon the flower bed by my study window. I and my wife stood amazed. Then I realised that the crest of Maybury Hill must be within range of the Martians' heat ray now that the college was cleared out of the way. At that, I gripped my wife's arm, and without ceremony, ran her out into the road. Then I fetched out the servant, telling her I would go upstairs myself for the box she was clamouring for. "We can't possibly stay here," I said. As I spoke, the firing reopened for a moment upon the common. "But where are we to go?" said my wife in terror. I thought, perplexed. Then I remembered her cousins at Leatherhead. "Leatherhead!" I shouted above the sudden noise. She looked away from me downhill. The people were coming out of their houses astonished. "How are we to get to Leatherhead?" she said. Down the hill I saw a bevy of hussars ride under the railway bridge. 3 galloped through the open gates of the Oriental College. 2 others dismounted and began running from house to house. The sun, shining through the smoke that drove up from the tops of the trees, seemed blood red, and threw an unfamiliar lurid light upon everything. "Stop here," said I. "You are safe here." And I started off at once for the Spotted Dog, for I knew the landlord had a horse and dog cart. I ran, for I perceived that in a moment everyone upon this side of the hill would be moving. I found him in his bar, quite unaware of what was going on behind his house. A man stood with his back to me, talking to him. "I must have £1," said the landlord, "and I've no one to drive it." "I'll give you 2, said I, over the stranger's shoulder. "What for?" "And I'll bring it back by midnight," I said. "Lord," said the landlord, "what's the hurry? I'm selling my bit of a pig. £2 and you bring it back? What's going on now?" I explained hastily that I had to leave my home, and so secured the dog cart. At the time, it did not seem to me nearly so urgent that the landlord should leave his. I took care to have the cart there and then, drove it down the road, and, leaving it in charge of the wife and servant, rushed into my house and packed a few valuables, such plate as we had, and so forth. The beech trees below the house were burning. The beech trees below the house were burning while I did this, and the palings up the road glowed red. While I was occupied in this way, one of the dismounted hussars came running up. He was going from house to house, warning people to leave. He was going on as I came out of my front door, lugging my treasures, done up in a tablecloth. I shouted after him, "What news?" He turned, stared, bawled something about crawling out in a thing like a dish cover. and ran onto the gate of the house at the crest. A sudden whirl of black smoke driving across the road hid him for a moment. I ran to my neighbour's door and rapped to satisfy myself what I already knew, that his wife had gone to London with him and had locked up their house. I went in again, according to my promise, to get my servant's box, lugged it out, clapped it beside her on the tail of the dog cart, and then caught the reins and jumped up into the driver's seat beside my wife. In another moment, we were clear of the smoke and noise, and spanking down the opposite slope of Maybury Hill towards Old Woking. In front was a quiet, sunny landscape, a wheat field ahead on either side of the road, and the Maybury Inn with its swinging sign. I saw the doctor's cart ahead of me. At the bottom of the hill, I turned my head to look at the hillside I was leaving. Thick streamers of black smoke, shot with threads of red fire, were driving up into the still air, and throwing dark shadows upon the green tree-tops eastward. The smoke already extended far away to the east and west, to the Byfleet pine woods eastward, and to Woking on the west. The road was dotted with people running towards us, and very faint now, but very distinct through the hot, quiet air. One heard the whir of a machine gun that was presently stilled, and an intermittent crackling of rifles. Apparently, the Martians were setting fire to everything within range of their heat ray. I am not an expert driver, and I had immediately to turn my attention to the horse. When I looked back again, the second hill had hidden the black smoke. I slashed the horse with the whip, and gave him a loose rein until Woking and Send lay between us and that quivering tumult. I overtook and passed the doctor between Woking and Send. So ends chapter 9. That was a... Jeez. That was a tricky chapter to read, I've got to say. It was, I sort of stumbled over quite a few sentences. And, hang on, where is it? Where's the... In another moment, we were clear of the smoke and noise and spanking down the opposite slope. I mean, obviously, this is like late 19th century slang for going fast, like speeding up down a hill. But as soon as I read the word spanking, I was like, right, what's happening? Thank you for the lurk, Eve. Space, they haven't changed yet unless I've been going to work at the wrong time, so I bet they'd soon tell you. I think it's the last Sunday of the month, isn't it? Excuse me, it's the final Sunday of the month that the clocks change. I mean, I don't have to do it. I don't use my oven clock. I mean, who does? Everything else that uses the time resets itself. Oh, there you go, thank you, Space. On Sunday the 31st, yeah, cool. Yep, if I am reading as I will catch up with the chat at the end of the current chapter. Adam, hello. Oh my god, it's Robo. I haven't seen him in ages. I know, right? God, 11 years. God, it soon flies by, doesn't it? It's been 11 years since EGX. Hello, Adam. Were you here for the last reading? Do you know what's going on? I'm literally just reading a book to chat. Because chat can't read. No, sorry. Spanking down the opposite slope. Thank you, Space, for adding a quote. Although that's not my quote. That's it's h.g.wells' quote. From now on, whenever I go fast anywhere, I shall be spanking. There you go. Quote 512. Wow. But welcome, everyone. What else? Oh, there was another thing that made me stop. It was when the journalist is talking to the soldiers, and he, I mean, I'm sure to say that somebody, so like they say, a little contemplative, dark man. It's not. That's not a term for skin color, is it? I'm not sure if I was interpreting it as something like, say, like Captain Black from Captain Scarlet. He's got very shadowy eyes, sort of grey stubble. So like that's what I'm hoping that it means, because again, the times that this was written in, there was a very different dialect used, very different words used that we do not use today, or certain ways of describing people that we do not use today. So, yeah, but I mean, maybe it's just the connotations of what that means at the time compared to what it means now. But I mean that was only one moment of the story, so maybe that's just a one-off. But yeah, it felt a bit weird. I was not, but I've read it before, so I'm not lost. No problem, no problem. We only did chapters 1 to 8 last time, and so I mean presumably this time will be 9 to 16. But honestly, we'll just go until 4 o'clock. Odd job. Odd job. What, that just the description of the guy? What was his full description? Little contemplative. Are you going by little? Do you mean knick-knack space? Is that what you meant? Or are you referencing something completely different? Sorry. Okay, I'm going to get a drink before I continue. Once I've got the drink, we will start chapter 10. So I won't take long. I'll literally be right round the corner, so hold up. So the sun is streaming right through my window onto the sun is streaming right onto my floor, and it's making the floor really warm, and it feels really lovely. No, I don't need headphones. That's instinct. That is. I don't need that. Either might do, but odd job came to mind. Oh, I see. Googling it to see if anyone's done any research into the language. Cool. Thank you, Space. The floor is lava. The floor is lava. Das ist lava. No. It's nice, though. It feels nice under my feet. And the thing is, even on a cold day, when the sun's shining through like that, it'll just warm up the floor regardless. And it's very nice. It's almost don't need slippers. Right. Let's take a swig of drink and we'll carry on with chapter 10. How big is chapter 10? That's another funny thing. The chapters are like only a few pages long. Yeah, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages. And even then, 2 of them aren't full pages. Okay. I'll just read what Adam said before I continue. I'm sure some English teacher somewhere tells you it's because of his dark intentions and foreshadowing, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, maybe. This one-off character who isn't given a name, just a description, suddenly becomes the pinnacle of the story. Chapter 10. In the Storm. Did I say the title of chapter 9? I didn't, did I? Chapter 9, The Fighting Begins. I feel like I didn't. Chapter 10. In the Storm. Leatherhead is about 12 miles from Maybury Hill. The scent of hay was in the air through the lush meadows beyond Pierford, and the hedges on either side were sweet and gay with multitudes of dog roses. The heavy firing that had broken out while we were driving down Maybury Hill ceased as abruptly as it began, leaving the evening very peaceful and still. We got to Leatherhead without misadventure about 9 o'clock, and the horse had an hour's rest while I took supper with my cousins and commended my wife to their care. My wife was curiously silent throughout the drive, and seemed oppressed with forebodings of evil. I talked to her reassuringly, pointing out that the Martians were tied to the pit by sheer heaviness, and, at the utmost, could but crawl a little out of it, but she only answered in monosyllables. Had it not been for my promise to the innkeeper, she would, I think, have urged me to stay in Leatherhead that night. Would that I had. Her face, I remember, was very white as we parted. For my own part, I had been feverishly excited all day. Something very like the war fever that occasionally runs through a civilized community had got into my blood, and in my heart I was not so very sorry that I had to return to Maybury that night. I was even afraid that the last fusillade, I had heard that I had heard, might mean the extermination of our invaders from Mars. I can best express my state of mind by saying that I wanted to be in at the death. It was nearly 11 when I started to return. The night was unexpectedly dark. To me, walking out of the lighted passage of my cousin's house, it seemed indeed black, and it was as hot and close as the day. Overhead, the clouds were driving fast, albeit not a breath stirred the shrubs about us. My cousin's man lit both lamps. Happily, I knew the road intimately. My wife stood in the light of the doorway and watched me until I jumped up into the dog cart. Then abruptly she turned and went in, leaving my cousins side by side, wishing me good hap. I was a little depressed at first with the contagion of my wife's fears, but very soon my thoughts reverted to the Martians. At that time, I was absolutely in the dark as to the course of the evening's fighting. I did not know even the circumstances that had precipitated the conflict. As I came through Ockham, for that was the way I returned, and not through Send and Old Woking, I saw along the western horizon a blood-red glow, which, as I drew nearer, crept slowly up the sky. The driving clouds of the gathering thunderstorm mingled there with masses of black and red smoke. Ripley Street was deserted, and except for a lighted window or so the village showed not a sign of life. But I narrowly escaped the accident at the corner of the road to Pierford, where a knot of people stood with their backs to me. They said nothing to me as I passed. I do not know what they knew of the things happening beyond the hill, nor do I know if the silent houses I passed on my way were sleeping securely, or deserted and empty, or harassed and watching against the terror of the night. Excuse me. From Ripley until I came through to Pierford, I was in the valley of the Wey, and the red glare was hidden from me. As I ascended the little hill beyond Pierford Church, the glare came into view again, and the trees about me shivered with the first intimation of the storm that was upon me. Then I heard midnight pealing out from Pierford Church behind me, and then came the silhouette of Maybury Hill, with its treetops and roofs black and sharp against the red. Even as I beheld this lurid green glare Even as I beheld this, a lurid green glare lit the road about me, and showed the distant woods towards Addlestone. I felt a tug at the reins. I saw that the driving cloud had been pierced, as it were, by a thread of green fire, suddenly lighting their confusion and falling into the fields to my left. It was the third falling star. Close on its apparition, and blindingly violet by contrast, danced out the first lightning of the gathering storm, and the thunder burst like a rocket overhead. The horse took the bit between his teeth and bolted. A moderate incline runs down towards the foot of Maybury Hill, and down this we clattered. Once the lightning had begun, it went on in a rapid succession of flashes as I had ever seen. The thunderclaps, treading one on the heels of the other, and with a single crackling accompaniment, sounded more like the working of a gigantic electric machine than the usual detonating reverberations. The flickering light was blinding and confusing, and a thin hail smoked gustily at my face as I drove down the slope. At first, I regarded little but the road before me, and then abruptly my attention was arrested by something that was moving rapidly down the opposite slope of Maybury Hill. At first, I took it for the wet roof of a house, but one flash following another showed it to be in swift rolling movement. It was an elusive vision, a moment of bewildering darkness, and then a flash like daylight, the red masses of the orphanage near the crest of the hill, the green tops of the pine trees, and this problematic object came out clear and sharp and bright. And this thing I saw, how can I describe it? A monstrous tripod, higher than many houses, striding over the young pine trees and smashing them aside in its career. A walking engine of glittering metal, striding now across the heather, articulate ropes of steel dangling from it, and the clattering tumult of its passage mingling with the riot of the thunder. A flash, and it came out vividly, heeling over one way with 2 feet in the air, to vanish and reappear almost instantly as it seemed, with the next flash 100 yards nearer. Can you imagine a milking stool tilted and bowled violently along the ground? That was the impression those instant flashes gave. But instead of a milking stool, imagine it a great body of machinery on a tripod stand. Then, suddenly, the trees in the pine wood ahead of me were parted, as brittle reeds are parted by a man thrusting through them. They were snapped off and driven headlong, and a second huge tripod appeared, rushing, as it seemed, headlong towards me, and I was galloping hard to meet it. At the sight of the second monster, my nerve went altogether. Not stopping to look again, I wrenched the horse's head hard round to the right, and in another moment the dog-cart had keeled over upon the horse, the shaft smashed noisily, and I was flung sideways and fell heavily into a shallow pool of water. I crawled out almost immediately and crouched, my feet still in the water, under a clump of firs. The horse lay motionless. His neck was broken, poor brute. And by the lightning flashes I saw the black bulk of the overturned dog-cart, and the silhouette of the wheel still spinning slowly. In another moment the colossal mechanism went striding by me, and passed uphill towards Pierford. Seen nearer, the thing was incredibly strange, for it was no mere insensate machine driving on its way. Machine it was, with a ringing metallic pace and long, flexible, glittering tentacles, one of which gripped a young pine tree, swinging and rattling about its strange body. It picked its road as it went striding along, and the brazen hood that surmounted it moved to and fro with the inevitable suggestion of a head looking about it. Behind the main body was a huge thing of white metal, like a gigantic fisherman's basket, and puffs of green smoke squirted out from the joints of the limbs as the monster swept by me. And in an instant it was gone. So much I saw then, all vaguely for the flickering of the lightning, in blinding high lights and dense black shadows. As it passed, it set up an exultant, deafening howl that drowned the thunder. Alloo! Alloo! And in another minute it was with its companion, and half a mile away, stooping over something in the field. I have no doubt this thing in the field was the third of the 10 cylinders they had fired at us from Mars. For some minutes I lay there in the rain and darkness, watching, by the intermittent light, these monstrous beings of metal moving about in the distance over the hedge-tops. A thin hail was now beginning, and as it came and went, their figures grew misty, and then flashed into clearness again. Now and then came a gap in the lightning, and the night swallowed them up. I was soaked with hail above and puddle water below. It was some time before my blank astonishment would let me struggle up the bank to a dry position, or think at all of my imminent peril. Not far from me was a little one-roomed squatter's hut of wood, surrounded by a patch of potato garden. I struggled to my feet at last, and, crouching, and making use of every chance of cover, I made a run for this. I hammered at the door, but I could not make the people hear, if there were any people inside. And after a time I desisted, and, availing myself of a ditch for the greater part of the way, succeeded in crawling, unobserved by these monstrous machines, into the pine wood towards Maybury. Under cover of this I pushed on, wet and shivering now, towards my own house. I walked among the trees, trying to find the footpath. It was very dark indeed in the wood, for the lightning was now becoming infrequent, and the hail, which was pouring down in a torrent, fell in columns through the gaps in the heavy foliage. If I had fully realised the meaning of all these things that I had seen, I should have immediately worked my way round through Byfleet to Street Cobham, and so gone back to rejoin my wife at Leatherhead. But that night, the strangeness of things about me, and my physical wretchedness, prevented me, for I was bruised, weary, wet to the skin, deafened and blinded by the storm. I had a vague idea of going on to my own house, and that was as much motive as I had. I staggered through the trees, fell into a ditch and bruised my knees against a plank, and finally splashed out into the lane that ran down from the College Arms. I say splashed, for the storm water was sweeping the sand down the hill in a muddy torrent. There in the darkness, a man blundered into me and sent me reeling back. He gave a cry of terror, sprung sideways, and rushed on before I could gather my wits sufficiently to speak to him. So heavy was the stress of the storm, just at this place, that I had the hardest task to win my way up the hill. I went close up to the fence on the left and worked my way along its palings. Near the top, I stumbled upon something soft and, by a flash of lightning, saw between my feet a heap of black broadcloth and a pair of boots. Before I could distinguish clearly how the man lay, the flicker of light had passed. I stood over him, waiting for the next flash. When I came, I saw that he was a sturdy man, cheaply but not shabbily dressed. His head was bent under his body, and he lay crumpled up close to the fence, as though he had been flung violently against it. Overcoming the repugnance natural to one who had never before touched a dead body, I stooped and turned him over to feel for his heart. He was quite dead. Apparently his neck had been broken. The lightning flashed for a third time, and his face leapt upon me. I sprang to my feet. It was the landlord of the Spotted Dog, whose conveyance I had taken. I stepped over him gingerly, and pushed on up the hill. I made my way by the police station and the College Arms towards my own house. Excuse me. Nothing was burning on the hillside, though from the common there still came a red glare and a rolling tumult of ruddy smoke beating up against the drenching hail. So far as I could see by the flashes, the houses about me were mostly uninjured. By the College Arms a dark heap lay in the road. Down the road towards Maybury Bridge there were voices and the sound of feet, but I had not the courage to shout or to go to them. I let myself in with my latch key, closed, locked, and bolted the door, staggered to the foot of the staircase, and sat down. My imagination was full of those striding metallic monsters, and of the dead body smashed against the fence. I crouched at the foot of the staircase with my back to the wall, shivering violently. So ends chapter 10. And again, there's the tripod that was being described. No, there are tentacles. You can just about see them. Sorry, it's a bit dark. I don't really know how I can get better lighting here. Yeah, you can't see, can you? I mean, if you look up the artwork for War of the Worlds, the musical by Jeff Wayne, you'll get pictures of these. I really like the artwork in that album. It's so accurate to what is in this book. I love it. When I read this, I picture that. Okay. Chat, what you been saying? What you saying? Space. A little contemplative dark man smoking a pipe. It's isolated, so dark man could mean anything. Almost a Hobbit description. Yeah, true. Yeah, I'll imagine it was like a sort of like a Captain Black type person. Breaking my brain. Oh, how are you today? Space is breaking his brain as Jewel watching. You've got one eye on that one eye there. Like that meme of SpongeBob reading something at 2 pages at a time. Oh, Space. Also spent the morning with Robo shouting out my speakers. Wait, what are you doing? Spent the morning with Robo shouting out of my speakers as I was audio editing a clip of Robo. Oh, the run, you shit, run! Hey, Kraken Teeth Gaming. Oh my god, it's 6:30 AM and I'm so hungover. You as well? Jeez, apparently Owen has been suffering as well, and summertime. But Kraken, how you doing? Oh, I like it when you guys greet each other. Best cure is rum, indeed. The hair of the dog that bit you. That's what they call it. Drink enough till you no longer feel bad. Yeah. We're all gonna die. Hug your loved ones. Run, hide, eat the rich. Yeah, please eat the rich. But not before, like, robbing them of everything they've got, so that they know what it's like to be poor before you cut their head off and roll it down the hill and play football with it. Hey, Katie from the Sticks. How you doing? Twin! Eve emerges from the lurk. The twin. She has been summoned. At first I thought you were pulling a moo in a suit. What? Pulling a moo in a suit. I was pulling a moo. What was I doing? Did you... I don't know what's going on. Eve's laughing. No, what? I don't get it. Why are you laughing at me? Thank you for those shout-outs, Space. And thank you for shouting out Eve's streaming channel as well. Eve, why are you laughing? I will read chapter 11, but I want to know where I've goofed. Actually, was there anything to note in that chapter? Again, there's still quite a few sentences that I really stumble over. King Moo. Oh, you thought I was wearing a suit? Really? This really? Oh, the impression of you emerging from the shadows. Yeah, like... Oh. King Moo. Yeah, wearing a suit to stream. No. I don't even think I've got a... I mean, this is a fancy black top. And it is a fancy background, but it's more like, you know, cozy library where it's story time. You know, you're all sitting on the floor in front of me, and I'm sat here with the book, and I'm reading a story to you. That's basically what it is. That's the vibe we're going for. Sorry, Katie. I'm clearly very tired. That might be a reason why I'm struggling to read. It's because of how tired I am. But I wanted to do this, so it's not like I'm stopping it. Black top, fancy black job. You were leaning forward, couldn't see the blue. Oh, okay. It's that. That's what I'm wearing. You shall have to find a suit. Black tie quiz stream. Oh my god, yeah. I think I've got a... Oh god, do I have it with me? I should do. I've got a bow tie, but it's clip-on. It's not a real one, it's a clip-on one. I mean, it's a real one, but it's a clip-on one. Not a real one that you tie up yourself. Or is it like just regular tie? Is that what black tie? Black tie is like a bow tie, right? This is because I don't wear suits very often. My actual suit has been taken home, and I'm pretty sure it's too big for me now. Suit for hot sauce stream. Oh yeah. Lurking as I drive the porcelain bus. Oh, Kraken. Oh no. Kraken is hungover, Eve. But yeah, look after yourself, Kraken. Drink plenty of water. That's the key. The worst part of a hangover is the dehydration, so drink plenty of water and you're fine. You'll be pissing buckets, but you'll be feeling better. Quite alright. Thank you, Katie. Yeah, my brain no function. Brain no function. But we are almost an hour in. See how many more chapters we can get. We're on to chapter 11 now. And if you've just joined us, this is War of the Worlds by h.g. Wells. And I'm going to have another drink of water because wet my whistle and all that. Yeah, feel better, Kraken. Okay. Chapter 11. At the Window. I have said already that my storms of emotion have a trick of exhausting themselves. After a time, I discovered that I was cold and wet, and with little pools of water about me on the stair carpet. I got up almost mechanically, went into the dining room and drank some whiskey, and then I was moved to change my clothes. After I had done that, I went upstairs to my study, but why I did so I do not know. The window of my study looks over the trees and the railway towards Horsell Common. In the hurry of our departure, this window had been left open. The passage was dark, and, by contrast, with the picture the window frame enclosed, that side of the room seemed impenetrably dark. I stopped short in the doorway. The thunderstorm had passed. The towers of the Oriental College and the pine trees around it had gone, and very far away, lit by a vivid red glare, the common about the sandpits was visible. Across the light, huge black shapes, grotesque and strange, moved busily to and fro. It seemed, indeed, as if the whole country in that direction was on fire. A broad hillside set with minute tongues of flame, swaying and writhing with the gusts of the dying storm, and throwing a red reflection upon the cloud scud above. Every now and then a haze of smoke from some nearer conflagration drove across the window and hid the Martian shapes. I could not see what they were doing, nor the clear form of them, nor recognise the black objects they were busied upon. Neither could I see the nearer fire, though the reflections of it danced on the wall and ceiling of the study. A sharp, resinous twang of burning was in the air. I closed the door noiselessly and crept towards the window. As I did so, the view opened out until, on the one hand, it reached to the houses about Woking Station, and on the other, to the charred and blackened pine woods of Byfleet. There was a light down below the hill, on the railway near the arch, and several of the houses along the Maybury Road and the streets near the station were glowing ruins. The light upon the railway puzzled me at first. There was a black heap and a vivid glare, and to the right of that, a row of yellow oblongs. I perceived that this was a wrecked train, the fore part smashed and on fire, the hinder carriages still upon the rails. Between these three main centres of light, the houses, the train, and the burning country towards Chobham, stretched irregular patches of dark country, broken here and there by intervals of dimly glowing and smoking ground. It was the strangest spectacle, that black expanse set with fire. It reminded me, more than anything else, of the potteries seen at night. People at first I could distinguish none, though I peered intently for them. Later I saw against the light of Woking Station a number of black figures hurrying one after another across the line. And this was the little world in which I had been living securely for years, this fiery chaos. What had happened in the last 7 hours I still did not know. Nor did I know, though I was beginning to guess, the relation between those mechanical colossi and the sluggish lumps I had seen disgorged from the cylinder. With a queer feeling of impersonal interest, I turned my desk chair to the window, sat down, and stared at the blackened country, and particularly at the three gigantic black things that were going to and fro in the glare about the sandpits. They seemed amazingly busy. I began to ask myself what they could be. Were they intelligent mechanisms? Such a thing I felt was impossible. Or did a Martian sit within each, ruling, directing, using much as a man's brain sits and rules in his body? I began to compare the things to human machines, to ask myself for the first time in my life how an ironclad or a steam engine would seem to an intelligent lower animal. The storm had left the sky clear, and over the smoke of the burning land, the little fading pinpoint of Mars was dropping into the west. When the soldier came into my garden, I heard a slight scraping at the fence, and rousing myself from the lethargy that had fallen upon me, I looked down and saw him dimly clambering over the palings. At the sight of another human being, my torpor passed, and I leaned out of the window eagerly. "Hist!" I said in a whisper. He stopped astride of the fence in doubt. Then he came over and across the lawn to the corner of the house. He bent down and stepped softly. "Who's there?" he said, also whispering, standing under the window and peering up. "Where are you going?" I asked. "God knows." "Are you trying to hide?" "That's it." "Come into the house," I said. I went down, unfastened the door and let him in, and locked the door again. I could not see his face. He was hatless, and his coat was unbuttoned. "My God," he said as I drew him in. "What has happened?" I asked. "What hasn't?" In the obscurity I could see he made a gesture of despair. "They wiped us out. Simply wiped us out," he repeated again and again. He followed me, almost mechanically, into the dining room. "Take some whiskey," I said, pouring out a stiff dose. He drank it. Then, abruptly, he sat down before the table, put his head on his arms, and began to sob and weep like a little boy, in a perfect passion of emotion, while I, with a curious forgetfulness of my own despair, stood beside him, wondering. It was a long time before he could steady his nerves to answer my questions, and then he answered perplexingly and brokenly. He was a driver in the artillery, and had only come into action about 7. At that time, firing was going on across the common, and it was said that the first party of Martians were crawling towards their second cylinder under cover of a metal shield. Later, this shield staggered up on tripod legs and became the first of the fighting machines I had seen. The gun he drove had been unlimbered near Horsell in order to command the sandpits, and its arrival had precipitated the action. As the limber gunners went to the rear, his horse trod in a rabbit hole and came down, throwing him into a depression of the ground. At the same moment, the gun exploded behind him. The ammunition blew up, there was fire all about him, and he found himself lying under a heap of charred dead men and dead horses. I lay still, he said, scared out of my wits, with the forequarter of a horse atop of me. We'd been wiped out, and the smell, good God, like burnt meat. I was hurt across my back by the fall of the horse, and there I had to lie until I felt better. Just like parade it had been a minute before, then stumble, bang, swish. Wiped out, he said. He had hid under the dead horse for a long time, peeping out furtively across the common. The Cardigan men had tried a rush in skirmishing order at the pit, simply to be swept out of existence. Then the monster had risen to its feet and had begun to walk leisurely to and fro across the common, among the few fugitives with its head-like hood turning about exactly like the head of a cowled human being. A kind of arm carried a complicated metallic case, about which green flashes scintillated, and out of the funnel of this there smoked the heat ray. In a few minutes there was, so far as the soldier could see, not a living thing left upon the common, and every bush and tree upon it that was not already a blackened skeleton was burning. The hussars had been on the road beyond the curvature of the ground, and he saw nothing of them. He heard the Maxims rattle for a time, and then become still. The giant saved Woking Station and its cluster of houses until last. Then, in a moment, the heat ray was brought to bear, and the town became a heap of fiery ruins. Then the thing shut off the heat ray, and, turning its back upon the artilleryman, began to waddle away towards the smouldering pine woods that sheltered the second cylinder. As it did so, a second glittering titan built itself up out of the pit. The second monster followed the first, and at that the artilleryman began to crawl very cautiously across the hot heather ash towards Horsell. He managed to get alive into the ditch along by the side of the road, and so escaped to Woking. There his story became ejaculatory. The place was impassable. It seems there were a few people alive there, frantic for the most part, and many burnt and scalded. He was turned aside by the fire, and hid among some almost scorching heaps of broken wall as one of the Martian giants returned. He saw this one pursue a man, catch him up in one of its steely tentacles, and knocked his head against the trunk of a pine tree. At last, after nightfall, the artilleryman made a rush for it and got over the railway embankment. Since then, he had been skulking along towards Maybury, in the hope of getting out of danger Londonwards. People were hiding in trenches and cellars, and many of the survivors had made off towards Woking Village and Send. He had been consumed with thirst until he found one of the water mains near the railway arch smashed, and the water bubbling out like a spring upon the road. That was the story I got from him bit by bit. He grew calmer, telling me, and trying to make me see the things that he had seen. He had eaten no food since midday. He told me early in his narrative, and I found some mutton and bread in the pantry and brought it into the room. We lit no lamp for fear of attracting the Martians, and ever and again our hands would touch upon bread or meat. As he talked, things about us came darkly out of the darkness, and the trampled bushes and broken rose trees outside the window grew distinct. It would seem that a number of men or animals had rushed across the lawn. I began to see his face, blackened and haggard, as no doubt mine was also. When he had finished eating, We went softly upstairs to my study, and I looked again out of the open window. In one night the valley had become a valley of ashes. The fires had dwindled now. Where flames had been, there were now streamers of smoke, but the countless ruins of shattered and gutted houses and blasted and blackened trees that the night had hidden stood out now, gaunt and terrible, in the pitiless light of dawn. Yet here and there, some object had had the luck to escape. A white railway signal here, the end of a greenhouse there, white and fresh amidst the wreckage. Never before in the history of warfare had destruction been so indiscriminate and so universal. And shining with the growing light of the east, 3 of the metallic giants stood about the pit, their cowls rotating, as though they were surveying the desolation they had made. It seemed to me that the pit had been enlarged, and ever and again puffs of vivid green vapour streamed up out of it towards the brightening dawn, streamed up, whirled, broke, and vanished. Beyond were the pillars of fire about Chobham. They became pillars of bloodshot smoke at the first touch of day. Ugh. Okay. That was chapter 11. God, my throat hurt that one for some reason. What's going on? I'm 100% sure Kiesco will come in his gown to spite me. Probably. He probably will. He might still have a tie underneath, though. Twin, have we asked for Witcher to be read in this series? But it's on the list of suggestions. This is a test. Yeah, it's a test. I mean, I think every other Sunday is good, but I mean, I don't know. Can I get some feedback? What is it like so far? What do we think? I mean, I feel like I need to finish the book at least. I wouldn't want to stop like part way through. Kraken will be fine. It's Fleet Week, and my friend Maria just got out of serving the Navy for 10 years. Oh my god, she was at sea for 1.5 years, and we threw her a big welcome home party after picking her up from the docks. Oh, that sounds so good. And yeah, please do pictures of food, definitely. And yeah, that sounds like a real good party. Yeah, feel better soon nonetheless. This is a test of the emergency broadcasting system. Emergency broadcasting system. Maybe they don't do that in Europe. Assume Ryber would get it. Didn't they have an emergency broadcasting system under the threat of nuclear war? Or am I confusing that with the early warning system? I don't know. Sirens, much better drama indeed. Yeah. Tentacles, it's all gone hentai. Martians came to Earth to find better vape flavours. Hello, Fexy, how are you doing? Welcome to Sunday Story Time, where I'm experimenting by reading War of the Worlds to the chat. And we are quarter of the way through the... No, actually, it's more like a third, isn't it? Maybe a third of the way through the book. So, yeah. It's a really long chapter name. Yeah, so those of you who are lurking or actively watching, how is this going? This is very different to the other streams I do. Is it chill enough? Is it awkward listening to me stumble over sentences? Like, I don't know. Just throw some feedback at me, because I'm not unsure about doing it. It's not a case of that. I just want to know what other people think of it, because everything I do is for you. So I do what I want, but I do it for you. There we go. Just to clarify. Everything I do it for you. Very relaxing. Thank you, Jane. Except when I'm stumbling over my words, like. Seems good. It's chill and cool. Okay. I'll take that. As for Twin, when reading, take care of your vocals and much hydration. Indeed. Yeah, this is a different kind of reading. Yeah, I've got my drink. But honestly, I feel like the drink isn't enough. The sentencing in this it's just so long. And I think that a sentence ends, and then I think, oh wait, no, that's a comma. It goes on for another 2 lines. I like it. It's relaxing. Stumbles aren't noticeable. Thank you. Stumbling over a spanking. Thank you, Space. Yeah, in case you missed it, we had the word spanking earlier to mean, like, sort of hurrying up. Lack of Sonic music alone, the stream is already 10 out of 10. Hashtags chill stream. So I mean, my streams are like 10 out of 10, but unless I'm playing Sonic music, in which case they're 1 out of 10. Is that what you mean? Wow. Okay. Oh, this is possibly our biggest chapter yet. Chapter 12. Holy cow. Hang on. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages. Holy cow. This is going to be a big one. Okay, well, thank you for the feedback. I appreciate that. And now, I continue. Chapter 12. What I saw of the destruction of Weybridge and Shepparton. As the dawn grew brighter, we withdrew ourselves from the window from which we had watched the Martians and went very quietly downstairs. The artilleryman agreed with me that the house was no place to stay in. He proposed, he said, to make his way Londonwards, and thence rejoin his battery, number 12 of the Horse Artillery. My plan was to return at once to Leatherhead, and so greatly had the strength of the Martians impressed me that I had determined to take my wife to Newhaven, and go with her out of the country forthwith. For I already perceived clearly that the country about London must inevitably be the scene of a disastrous struggle before such creatures of these could be destroyed. Between us and Leatherhead, however, lay the third cylinder, with its guarding giants. Had I been alone, I think I would have taken my chance and stuck across the country. But the artilleryman dissuaded me. It's no kindness to the right sort of wife, he said, to make her a widow. And in the end, I agreed to go with him, under cover of the woods, northward as far as Street Chobham, before I parted with him. Thence I would make a big detour by Epsom to reach Leatherhead. I should have started at once, but my companion had been in active service, and he knew better than that. He made me ransack the house for a flask, which he filled with whisky, and we lined every available pocket with packets of biscuits and slices of meat. Then we crept out of the house and ran as quickly as we could down the ill-made road by which I had come overnight. The houses seemed deserted. In the road lay a group of 3 charred bodies close together, struck dead by the heat ray, and here and there were things that the people had dropped: a clock, a slipper, a silver spoon, and the like poor valuables. At the corner, turning up towards the post office, a little cart, filled with boxes and furniture, and horseless, heeled over on a broken wheel. A cash box had been hastily smashed open and thrown under the debris. Except the lodge at the orphanage, which was still on fire, none of the houses had suffered very greatly here. The heat ray had shaved the chimney tops and passed, yet, save ourselves, there did not seem to be a living soul on Maybury Hill. The majority of the inhabitants had escaped, I suppose, by way of the old Woking road, the road I had taken when I drove to Leatherhead, or they had hidden. We went down the lane by the body of the man in black, sodden now from the overnight hail, and broke into the woods at the foot of the hill. We pushed through these towards the railway, without meeting a soul. The woods across the line were but the scarred and blackened ruins of woods. For the most part, the trees had fallen, but a certain proportion still stood, dismal grey stems with dark brown foliage instead of green. On our side, the fire had done no more than scorch the nearer trees. It had failed to secure its footing. In one place, the woodmen had been at work on Saturday. Trees, felled and freshly trimmed, lay in a clearing, with heaps of sawdust, by the sawing machine and its engine. Hard by was a temporary hut, deserted. There was not a breath of wind this morning, and everything was strangely still. Even the birds were hushed, and as we hurried along, I and the artilleryman talked in whispers, and looked now and again over our shoulders. Once or twice we stopped to listen. After a time we drew near the road, and as we did so we heard the clatter of hooves and saw through the tree stems 3 cavalry soldiers riding slowly towards Woking. We hailed them, and they halted while we hurried towards them. It was a lieutenant and a couple of privates of the 8th Hussars, with a stand like a theodolite, which the artilleryman told me was a heliograph. "You are the first men I've seen coming by this way this morning," said the lieutenant. "What's brewing?" His voice and face were eager. The men behind him stared curiously. The artilleryman jumped down the bank into the road and saluted. "Gun destroyed last night, sir. Have been hiding. Trying to rejoin battery, sir. You'll come inside of the Martians, I expect, about half a mile along this road." "What the dickens are they like?" asked the lieutenant. "Giants in armour, sir. 100 feet high, 3 legs, and a body like aluminium, with a mighty great head in a hood, sir." "Get out," said the lieutenant. "What confounded nonsense! You'll see, sir. They carry a kind of box, sir, that shoots fire and strikes you dead." "What do you mean? A gun?" "No, sir," said the artilleryman. And the artilleryman began a vivid account of the heat ray. Halfway through, the lieutenant interrupted him and looked up at me. I was still standing on the bank by the side of the road. "Did you see it?" said the lieutenant. "It's perfectly true," I said. "Well," said the lieutenant, I suppose it's my business to see it too. Look here," to the artilleryman. "We're detailed here, clearing people out of their houses. You'd better go along and report yourself to Brigadier General Marvin, and tell him all you know. He's at Weybridge. Know the way?" "I do," I said, and he turned his horse southward again. "Half a mile, you say?" said he. "At most," I answered, and pointed over some treetops to the south. He thanked me and rode on, and we saw them no more. Further along the road we came upon a group of 3 women and 2 children in the road, busy clearing out a labourer's cottage. They had got hold of a little hand truck and were piling it up with unclean-looking bundles and shabby furniture. They were all too assiduously engaged to talk to us as we passed. At Byfleet Station, we emerged from the pine trees and found the country calm and peaceful under the morning sunlight. We were far beyond the range of the heat ray there, and had it not been for the silent desertion of some of the houses, the stirring movement of packing in others, and the knot of soldiers standing on the bridge over the railway and staring down the line towards Woking, the day would have seemed like any other Sunday. Several farm wagons and carts were moving creakily along the road to Addlestone, and suddenly, through the gate of a field, we saw, across a stretch of flat meadow, 6 12-pounders, standing neatly at equal distances and pointing towards Woking. The gunners stood by the guns waiting, and the ammunition wagons were at a business-like distance. The men stood almost as if under inspection. "That's good," said I. "They will get one fair shot at any rate." The artilleryman hesitated at the gate. "I shall go on," he said. Further on towards Weybridge, just over the bridge, there were a number of men in white fatigue jackets throwing up a long rampart and more guns behind. "It's bows and arrows against the lightning anyhow," said the artilleryman. "They haven't seen the fire beam yet." The officers, who were not actively engaged, stood and stared over the treetops southwestward, and the men digging would stop every now and again to stare in the same direction. Byfleet was in a tumult. People packing, and a score of hussars, some of them dismounted, some on horseback, were hunting them about. 3 or 4 black government wagons with crosses in white circles, and an old omnibus, among other vehicles, were being loaded into the village street. There were scores of people, most of them sufficiently sabbatical to have assumed their best clothes. The soldiers were having the greatest difficulty in making them realise the gravity of their position. We saw one shrivelled old fellow with a huge box and a score or more of flower pots containing orchids, angrily expostulating with the corporal who would leave them behind. I stopped and gripped his arm. "Do you know what's over there?" I said, pointing at the pine tops that hid the Martians. "Eh?" said he, turning. "I was explaining, these are valuable." "Death!" I shouted. "Death is coming! Death!" And leaving him to digest that if he could, I hurried on after the artilleryman. At the corner, I looked back. The soldier had left him, and he was still standing by his box with the pots and orchids on the lid of it, and staring vaguely over the trees. No one in Weybridge could tell us where the headquarters were established. The whole place was in such confusion as I had never seen in any town before. Carts, carriages everywhere. The most astonishing miscellany of conveyances and horseflesh. The respectable inhabitants of the place, men in golf and boating costumes, wives prettily dressed, were packing, riverside loafers, energetically helping, children excited, and for the most part, highly delighted at this astonishing variation of their Sunday experiences. In the midst of it all, the worthy vicar was very pluckily holding an early celebration, and his bell was jangling out above the excitement. I and the artilleryman, seated on the step of the drinking fountain, made a very passable meal upon what we had brought with us. Patrols of soldiers, here no longer hussars but grenadiers in white, were warning people to move now or to take refuge in their cellars as soon as the firing began. We saw as we crossed the railway bridge that a growing crowd of people had assembled in and about the railway station, and the swarming platform was piled with boxes and packages. The ordinary traffic had stopped, I believe, in order to allow of the passage of troops and guns to Chertsey, and I had heard since that a savage struggle occurred for places in the special trains that were put on at a later hour. We remained at Weybridge until midday, and at that hour we found ourselves at the place near Shepparton Lock, where the Wey and the Thames join. Part of the time we spent helping two old women to pack a little cart. The Wey has a treble mouth, and at this point boats are to be hired, and there was a ferry across the river. On the Shepparton side was an inn with a lawn, and beyond that the tower of Shepparton Church. It has been replaced by a spire, rose above the streets. Here we found an excited and noisy crowd of fugitives. As yet, the flight had not yet grown to a panic, but there were already far more people than all the boats going to and fro could enable to cross. People came panting along under heavy burdens. One husband and wife were even carrying a small outhouse door between them, with some of their household goods piled thereon. One man told us he meant to try to get away from Shepparton Station. There was a lot of shouting, and one man was even jesting. The idea people seemed to have here was that the Martians were simply formidable human beings who might attack and sack the town, to be certainly destroyed in the end. Every now and then people would glance nervously across the way, at the meadows towards Chertsey, but everything over there was still. Across the Thames, except just where the boats had landed, everything was quiet, in vivid contrast with the Surrey side. The people who landed there from the boats went tramping off down the lane. The big ferry boat had just made a journey. 3 or 4 soldiers stood on the lawn of the inn, staring and jesting at the fugitives, without offering to help. The inn was closed, as it was now within prohibited hours. "What's that?" cried a boatman, and "Shut up, you fool!" said a man near to me to a yelping dog. Then the sound came again, this time from the direction of Chertsey, a muffled thud, the sound of a gun. The fighting was beginning. Almost immediately, unseen batteries across the river to our right, unseen because of the trees, took up the chorus, firing heavily after one another. A woman screamed. Everyone stood arrested by the sudden stir of battle, near us and yet invisible to us. Nothing was to be seen save flat meadows, cows feeding unconcernedly for the most part, and silvery pollard windows motionless in the warm sunlight. "The soldiers will stop them," said a woman beside me doubtfully. A haziness rode over the treetops. Then suddenly we saw a rush of smoke far away up the river, a puff of smoke that jerked up into the air and hung, and forthwith the ground heaved underfoot, and a heavy explosion shook the air, smashing 2 or 3 windows in the houses near, and leaving us astonished. "Here they are!" shouted a man in a blue jersey. "Yonder! Do you see them? Yonder!" Quickly, one after the other, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the armoured Martians appeared, far away over the little trees, across the flat meadows that stretched towards Chertsey, and striding hurriedly towards the river. Little cowled figures they seemed at first, going with a rolling motion and as fast as flying birds. Then, advancing obliquely towards us, came a 5th, their armoured bodies glittering in the sun, and they swept swiftly forward upon the guns, growing rapidly larger as they drew nearer. On one on the extreme left, the remotest, that is, flourished a huge case high in the air, and the ghostly, terrible heat ray I had already seen on the Friday night smote towards Chertsey and struck the town. At sight of these strange, swift and terrible creatures, the crowd along by the water's edge seemed to be, for me, for a moment horror-struck. There was no screaming or shouting, but a silence, then a hoarse murmur and a movement of feet, a splashing from the water. A man, too frightened to drop the portmanteau he carried on his shoulder, swung round and sent me staggering with a blow from the corner of his burden. A woman thrust at me with her hand and rushed past me. I turned too, with the rush of the people, but I was not too terrified for thought. The terrible heat wave was in my mind. To get under water, that was it. "Get under water!" I shouted, unheeded. I faced about again and rushed towards the approaching Martian. I rushed right down the gravelly beach and headlong into the water. Others did the same. A boatload of people, putting back, came leaping out as I rushed past. The stones under my feet were muddy and slippery, and the river was so low that I ran perhaps 20 feet, scarcely waist deep. Then, as the Martian towered overhead, scarcely a couple of 100 yards away, I flung myself forward under the surface. The splashes of the people in the boats leaping into the river sounded like thunderclaps in my ears. People were landing hastily on both sides of the river. But the Martian machine took no more notice for the moment of the people running this way and that than a man would of the confusion of ants in a nest by which his foot has kicked. When, half suffocated, I raised my head above the water, the Martian's hood pointed at the batteries that were still firing across the river, and as it advanced, it swung loose what must have been the generator of the heat ray. In another moment, it was on the bank, and in a stride wading halfway across. The knees of its foremost legs bent at the farther bank, and in another moment it had raised itself to its full height again, close to the village of Shepparton. Forthwith, the 6 guns which, unknown to anyone on the right bank, had been hidden behind the outskirts of that village, fired simultaneously. The sudden near concussions, the last close upon the first, made my heart jump. The monster was already raising the case generating the heat ray, as the first shell burst 6 yards above the hood. I gave a cry of astonishment. I saw and thought nothing of the other 4 Martian monsters. My attention was riveted upon the nearer incident. Simultaneously, 2 other shells burst in the air near the body as the hood twisted round in time to receive, but not in time to dodge, the 4th shell. The shell burst clean in the face of the thing. The hood bulged, flashed, was whirled off in a dozen tattered fragments of glittering metal. "Hit!" shouted I, with something between a scream and a cheer. I heard answering shouts from the people in the water about me. I could have leapt out of the water with that momentary exultation. The decapitated colossus reeled like a drunken giant, but it did not fall over. It recovered its balance by a miracle, and, no longer heeding its steps, and with the camera that fired the heat ray now rigidly upheld, it reeled swiftly upon Shepparton. The living intelligence, the Martian within the hood, was slain and splashed to the 4 winds of heaven. and the thing was now but a mere intricate device of metal whirling to destruction. It drove along in a straight line, incapable of guidance. It struck the tower of Shepparton Church, smashing it down as the impact of the battering ram might have done. Swerved aside, blundered on, and collapsed with a tremendous impact into the river out of my sight. A violent explosion shook the air, and a spout of water, steam, mud, and shattered metal shot far up into the sky. As the camera of the heat ray hit the water, the latter had incontinently flashed into steam. In another moment, a huge wave, like a muddy tidal bore, but almost scaldingly hot, came sweeping around the bend upstream. I saw people struggling shorewards, and heard their screaming and shouting faintly above the seething and roar of the Martian's collapse. For a moment, I heeded nothing of the heat, forgot the patent need of self-preservation. I splashed through the tumultuous water, pushing aside a man in black to do so, until I could see round the bend. Half a dozen deserted boats pitched aimlessly onto the confusion of the waves. The fallen Martian came into sight, downstream, lying across the river, and for the most part submerged. Thick clouds of steam were pouring off the wreckage, and through the tumultuously whirling wisps I could see, intermittently and vaguely, the gigantic limbs churning the water and flinging a splash and spray of mud and froth into the air. The tentacles swayed and struck like living arms, and, save for the helpless purposelessness of these movements, it was as if some wounded thing struggled for life amidst the waves. Enormous quantities of a ruddy brown fluid were spurting up in noisy jets out of the machine. My attention was diverted from this sight by a furious yelling, like that of a man called... by a furious yelling, like that of the thing called a siren in our manufacturing towns. A man, knee-deep near the towing path, shouted inaudibly to me and pointed. Looking back, I saw the other Martians advancing with gigantic strides down the riverbank, from the direction of Chertsey. The Shepparton guns spoke this time unavailingly. At that, I ducked once more under water, and holding my breath until movement was an agony, blundered painfully along under the surface as long as I could. The water was in a tumult about me, and rapidly growing hotter. When for a moment I raised my head to take breath and throw the hair and water from my eyes, the steam was rising in a whirling white fog that at first hid the Martians altogether. The noise was deafening. Then I saw them dimly, colossal figures of grey, magnified by the mist. They had passed by me, and two were stooping over the frothing, tumultuous ruins of their comrade. The third and fourth stood beside him in the water, one perhaps 200 yards from me, the other towards Laleham. The generators of the heat rays waved high, and the hissing beams smote down this way and that. The air was full of sound, a deafening and confusing conflict of noises. The clangorous din of the Martians, the crash of falling houses, the thud of trees, fences, sheds, flashing into flame, and the crackling and roaring of fire. Dense black smoke was leaping up to mingle with the steam from the river, and as the heat ray went to and fro over Weybridge, its impact was marked by flashes of incandescent white that gave place at once to a smoky dance of lurid flames. The nearer houses still stood intact, awaiting their fate, shadowy, faint and pallid in the steam, with the fire behind them going to and fro. For a moment, perhaps, I stood there, breast high in the almost boiling water, dumbfounded at my position, hopeless of escape. Through the reek, I could see the people who had been with me in the river, scrambling out of the water through the reeds, like little frogs hurrying through glass from the advance of a man, or running to and fro in utter dismay on the towing path. Then suddenly the white flashes of the heat ray came leaping towards me. The houses caved in as they dissolved at its touch, and darted out flames. The trees changed to fire with a roar. It flickered up and down the towing path, licking off the people who ran this way and that, and came down to the water's edge not 50 yards from where I stood. It swept across the river to Shepparton, and the water in its track rose in a boiling wheel crested with steam. I turned shoreward. In another moment, the huge wave, well nigh at the boiling point, had rushed upon me. I screamed aloud, and scalded, half-blinded, agonized, I staggered through the leaping, hissing water towards the shore. Had my foot stumbled, it would have been the end. I fell helplessly, in full sight of the Martians, upon the broad, bare, gravelly spit that runs down to mark the angle of the Wey and the Thames. I expected nothing but death. I have a dim memory of the foot of a Martian coming down within a score of yards of my head, driving straight into the loose gravel, whirling it this way and that, and lifting again. Of a long suspense, and then of the four carrying the debris of their comrade between them. Now clear, and then presently faint, through a veil of smoke receding interminably, as it seemed to me, across a vast space of river and meadow. And then, very slowly, I realised that by a miracle I had escaped. Oh, Jesus, I'm struggling with this one. Right. Stumbling over spanking here. Here we go. Cracking. At least h.g.wells has places to breathe between sentences. Jules Verne loves to write 2-sentence paragraphs. Oh, you say that, but geez, that... Hang on, where was it? There's a sentence here that lasts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6.5 lines is one sentence. It's only split up by colons and semicolons. Jeez. There's something that struck me a few pages ago. Where is it? It was somebody carrying something. It was a way... Hang on, where is it? Where? It's a word I know. Is it this bit? Sorry, bear with me. Kind of want to Google what the original meaning is. No, that's not it. It was somebody carrying something, wasn't it? No. Expostulating. That was a good word. I like that. Expostulating. Sabbatical. I mean, well, hang on. No, I mean, the word was portmanteau. Portman, T-E-A-U. And I know it to be when you make one word out of two other words. I think that's a portmanteau. It's like when you put two words together to make a new word. So, like, I don't know. Like, satellite navigation, sat-nav. Sat-nav is a portmanteau of satellite navigation. No, wait, no, it's not. Or is it a word that is the same backwards as it is forward? It's not, is it? It's when you two put words together to make one word. But yeah, that's the thing. But yeah, they were using it here in terms of like somebody like carrying something. They were carrying a portmanteau of something. I feel like it was on this side of the page, on the odd pages. Portmanteau. So what is the original meaning of it then? Because it's spelt the same. I can't find it now. Can't even find it. I definitely read it though. I'll have to Google it later. Morning. Good morning, Mute Gaming. Good afternoon from the UK, but good morning to you. Kind of just sitting down, going to watch on my phone downstairs for the reason of me having one. Oh, what? For the reason of having a reason. What? And enjoying this. Thank you. Next chapter in nerd voice, JK. Oh, God, please. I'm struggling in my own voice. Part of me is tempted to just end now, but I feel like I should... Let me see how big chapter 13 is. If it's any bigger or the same size as chapter 12, I might call it here. But if it's only a few pages long... Oh, there we go. Yeah. It's a short chapter. So I'll do chapter 13. And then I think by the time I've done that, it might be time to end. So, yeah. We'll sort of aim for the 2 hour mark. A large suitcase. Oh, is it? A large travelling bag, typically made of stiff leather, and opening into 2 equal parts. And the second meaning is a word blending the sounds and combining the meanings of 2 others. For example, motel or brunch. Oh, right, yeah, so it is making 1 word out of 2 others. Okay. Thank you, Space and Eve, for the... sorry, I've got an itchy nose. Ugh. Ugh. Jesus. Can you imagine if I was like that all the time? So something of 2 parts. Okay. Backwards, forwards is a palindrome. Thank you, Katie. Palindrome, yes. My last name is one. Oh. ABBA is a palindrome. What other... People have made, like, sayings or phrases that are palindromes, aren't they? Like, race car is a... Yeah, race car is a palindrome. I'd think about that one. Race car. Yeah, it is. Hannah is a good one. Yep. Eve is a palindrome. Wow. Katie has unlocked a key memory and a key piece of information for Eve there. Eve is a paradox. Excuse you. Is a palindrome as well. Eve is the same backwards as it is forward. Yes, it is. Yes. Yes, my name is a palindrome. Ah, you must be Miss Palindrome. Imagine the Bond girls having names that aren't sexual, but just, like, wordy. Aha, Miss Dictionary. You must be Madame the Saurus. What is going on? I promise this will end soon. I will end soon. I will cease to exist, and then you can all get on with your lives. Oh, God. Okay. Let's do chapter 13. And then we'll call it a day. Just FYI, no raids today. Raids require energy. I barely have the energy to speak. I'm just going to read the chapter, go over what's happening for the rest of this week, and then we're just going to end. There was a "my God" in the text, and I expected "my God, my God." I think I'm immersed in the world right now. So when I see someone saying "my God," I think of like, oh, great Scott, by Jove, you know. But I do prefer "my God." My God. God, does somebody actually say that? I'd love that as a sound alert. My God. Okay. Ugh. Chapter 13. How I Fell In with the Curate. Curate? Curate? Is it curate or curate? You're doing a great job. No, you. Is it curate? Curate. No, to curate something is to... It's almost like sort of gathering something, isn't it? Like a curator. So I imagine if you're referring to someone as a noun, it would be a curate, right? A curate. I'm going to say curate. After giving this sudden lesson in the power of terrestrial weapons, the Martians retreated to their original position upon Horsell Common, and in their haste, and encumbered with the debris of their smashed companion, they no doubt overlooked many such a stray and unnecessary victim as myself. Had they left their comrade, and pushed on forthwith, there was nothing at that time between them and London but batteries of 12-pounder guns, and they would certainly have reached the capital in advance of the tidings of their approach, as sudden, dreadful, and destructive their advent would have been as the earthquake that destroyed Lisbon a century ago. But they were in no hurry. Cylinder followed cylinder in its interplanetary flight. Every 24 hours brought them reinforcement, and meanwhile the military and naval authorities now fully alive to the tremendous power of their antagonists, worked with furious energy. Every minute a fresh gun came into position, until, before twilight, every copse, every row of suburban villas on the hilly slopes about Kingston and Richmond masked an expectant black muzzle. And through the charred and desolated area, perhaps 20 square miles altogether, that encircled the Martian encampment on Horsell Common, through charred and ruined villages among the green trees, through the blackened and smoking arcades that had been but a day ago pine spinneys, crawled the devoted scouts with the heliographs that were presently to warn the gunners of the Martian approach. But the Martians now understood our command of artillery and the danger of human proximity, and not a man ventured within a mile of either cylinder, save at the price of his life. It would seem these giants spent the earlier part of the afternoon in going to and fro, transferring everything from the second and third cylinders, the second in Addlestone golf links, and the third at Pierford, to their original pit on Horsell Common. Over that, above the blackened heather and ruined buildings that stretched far and wide, stood one as sentinel, while the rest abandoned their vast fighting machines and descended into the pit. They were hard at work there far into the night, and the towering pillar of dense green smoke that rose therefrom could be seen from the hills about Merrow, and even, it is said, from Banstead and Epsom Downs. And while the Martians behind me were thus preparing for their next sally, and in front of me humanity gathered for the battle, I made my way, with infinite pains and labour, from the fire and smoke of burning Weybridge towards London. I saw an abandoned boat, very small and remote, drifting downstream, and, throwing off most of my sodden clothes, I went after it, gained it, and so escaped out of that destruction. There were no oars in the boat, but I contrived to paddle, as much as my part-boiled hand would allow, down the river towards Halliford and Walton, going very tediously, and continually looking behind me. As you may well understand, I followed the river because I considered the water gave me my best chance of escape, should these giants return. The hot water from the Martians' overthrow drifted downstream with me, so that for the best part of a mile I could see little on either bank. Once, however, I made out a string of black figures hurrying across the meadows towards the direction of Weybridge, from the direction of Weybridge. Halliford, it seemed, was quite deserted, and several of the houses facing the river were on fire. It was strange to see the place quite tranquil, quite desolate under the hot blue sky, with the smoke and little threads of flame going straight up into the heat of the afternoon. Never before had I seen houses burning without the accompaniment of an inconvenient crowd. A little farther on, the dry reeds up the bank were smoking and glowing, and a line of fire inland was marching steadily across a late field of hay. For a long time I drifted, so painful and weary was I after the violence I had been through, and so intense the heat upon the water. Then my fears got the better of me again, and I resumed my paddling. The sun scorched my bare back. What was I? Whatever. For a long time I drifted. So painful and weary was I, after the violence I had been through, and so intense the heat upon the water. Then my fears got the better of me again, and I resumed my paddling. The sun scorched my bare back. At last, the bridge at Walton was coming into sight around the bend. My fever and faintness overcame my fears, and I landed on the Middlesex bank, and lay down, deadly sick, amidst the long grass. I suppose the time was then about 4 or 5 o'clock. I got up presently, walked perhaps half a mile without meeting a soul, and then lay down again in the shadow of a hedge. I seem to remember talking wonderingly to myself during that last spurt. I was also very thirsty, and bitterly regretful I had drunk no more water. It is a curious thing that I felt angry with my wife. I cannot account for it, but my impotent desire to reach Leatherhead worried me excessively. I do not clearly remember the arrival of the curate, so that I probably dozed. I became aware of him as a seated figure in soot-smudged shirt sleeves, and with his upturned, clean-shaven face staring at a faint flickering that danced over the sky. The sky was what is called a mackerel sky, rows and rows of faint down plumes of cloud, just tinted with the midsummer sunset. I sat up, and at the rustle of the... I shouldn't have done this today. Too late. I sat up, and at the rustle of my motion he looked at me quickly. "Have you any water?" I asked abruptly. He shook his head. "You have been asking for water for the last hour," he said. For a moment we were silent, taking stock of one another. I dare say he found me a strange enough figure, naked save for my water-soaked trousers and socks, scalded, and my face and shoulders blackened from the smoke. His face was a fair weakness. His chin retreated, and his hair lay in crisp, almost flaxen curls upon his low forehead. His eyes were rather large, pale blue, and blankly staring. He spoke abruptly, looking vacantly away from me. "What does it mean?" he said. "What do these things mean?" I stared at him and made no answer. He extended a thin white hand and spoke in almost a complaining tone. "Why are these things permitted? What sins have we done? The morning service was over. I was walking through the roads to clear my brain for the afternoon, and then... fire! Earthquake! Death! As if it were Sodom and Gomorrah. All our work undone. All the work. What are these Martians?" "What are we?" I answered, clearing my throat. He gripped his knees and turned to look at me again. For half a minute, perhaps, he stared silently. "I was walking through the road to clear my brains," he said, "and suddenly fire, earthquake, death." He relapsed into silence, with his chin now sunken almost to his knees. Presently, he began waving his hand. "All the work, all the Sunday schools. What have we done? What has Weybridge done? Everything gone, everything destroyed. The church! We rebuilt it only 3 years ago. Gone. Swept out of existence. Why?" Another pause, and he broke out again like one demented. "The smoke of her burning goeth up for ever and ever," he shouted. His eyes flamed, and he pointed a lean finger in the direction of Weybridge. By this time, I was beginning to take his measure. The tremendous tragedy in which he had been involved, it was evident that he was a fugitive from Weybridge, had driven him to the very verge of his reason. "Are we far from Sunbury?" I said in a matter-of-fact tone. "What are we to do?" he asked. "Are these creatures everywhere? Has the earth been given over to them? Are we far from Sunbury?" "Only this morning I officiated an early celebration. Things have changed," I said quietly. "You must keep your head. There is still hope." "Hope!" "Yes, plentiful hope, for all this destruction." I began to explain my view of our position. He listened at first, but as I went on, the interest in his eyes changed to their former stare, and his regard wandered from me. "This must be the beginning of the end," he said, interrupting me. "The end. The great and terrible day of the Lord, when men shall call upon the mountains and the rocks to fall upon them and hide them from the face of him that sitteth upon the throne." I began to understand the position. I ceased my laboured reasoning, struggled to my feet, and, standing over him, laid my hand on his shoulder. "Be a man," said I. "You are scared out of your wits. What good is religion if it collapses at calamity? Think of what earthquakes and floods, wars and volcanoes have done before to men. Did you think God had exempted Weybridge? He is not an insurance agent, man." For a time he sat in blank silence. "But how can we escape?" he asked suddenly. "They are invulnerable. They are pitiless." Neither the one nor, perhaps, the other, I answered. And the mightier they are, the more sane and wary we should be. One of them was killed yonder not 3 hours ago. Killed? He said, staring about him. How can God's ministers be killed? I saw it happen, I proceeded to tell him. We have chanced to come in for it. We have chanced to come in for the thick of it, said I. And that is all. What is that flicker in the sky? He asked abruptly. I told him it was the heliograph signalling, that it was the sign of human help and effort in the sky. We are in the midst of it, I said, quiet as it is. That flicker in the sky tells of the gathering storm. Yonder, I take it, are the Martians, and Londonward, where those hills rise about Richmond and Kingston, and the trees give cover. Earthworks are being thrown up and guns are being laid. Presently, the Martians will be coming this way again. And even as I spoke, he sprang to his feet and stopped me by a gesture. Listen, he said. From beyond the low hills across the water came the dull resonance of distant guns and a remote, weird crying. Then everything was still. A cockchafer came droning over the hedge and past us. High in the west, the crescent moon hung faint and pale above the smoke of Weybridge and Shepparton, and the hot, still splendour of the sunset. We had better follow this path, I said. Northward. That'll do. That'll do for today. And we got 10 minutes till 4 anyway, so I think that's a good place to end. I was really stumbling over that one. But, jeez. Oh, God. Okay. Jeez, everyone's been yakking. What have you been yakking? You're doing a great job. Thank you, Katie. Lol. What are we lolling at? What did I say? Was it the bit when he says he's angry at his wife? Oh, shit. Sorry. What does he say? He's like... it is a curious thing that I felt angry with my wife. I cannot account for it, but my impotent desire to reach Leatherhead worried me excessively. So he's angry at his wife for being in Leatherhead, in safety. Is that what? Unless does it mean something different? Is it like when you're so frustrated at the situation, you're like, God damn it, why can't we be in the same place? You know, is it like that? Is it that kind of anger? Or is he just a sexist wife beater? I don't know. Wife! That's the kind of person he probably is. And of course, it's the story is written from his perspective. I wouldn't mind seeing an adaptation of this from the wife's perspective. My lull was the outside noise in your reaction. Oh yeah, the honking of the horn and the kids running past. Yeah, that was it. It was coming out of that window. That's not even the window that's nearest to me. This one's nearer, and there's a great big main road out there. I love how I'm pointing. Kiesco, hello. There's no sound alerts, so F. Did he turn off commands? Yes, for reasons such as that. Words. There was a lot of that today. A lot of words. Come on. You got to use the right. Use the right emote. There you go. Words. Oh, I like your funny words, Magic Man. I'll tell you what I don't have that I should have. Is this. Let me try that again. There we go. Now the emotes will appear in front of the books. Kiesco, I'm going to do it at home for my own enjoyment then. The fart. Okay. He checks chat, end of chapter. I do, yeah. Did the message come through? It should be on like a little 2-minute interval, depending on how much chat there is. Yeah, there we go. It appeared down there. But thank you, Katie. Yes, to stop trolling, this is a chill stream. Indeed. So sorry, Kiesco, there's no chaos today. Feel free to join in tomorrow, where I will be doing It Takes Two with Summertime Queen again. God, it's such a good game, but my God, last week was a trauma. If you don't know what I mean, go and check the VOD on my YouTube. We're at the naked water fun part. Robo reads erotica. Oh, jeez. Robo reading smut. Boobs. Thighs. Oh. More boobs. Oh, yeah. Jeez. Can you imagine if I read Game of Thrones and I got to the sexy scenes? That's when I'd switch to ASMR. Cue the sexy music. Oh, yeah. Just posted Gilbert Gottfried. Oh, yeah. Gilbert Gottfried. Gilbert Gottfried. Who did he voice again? Who does he voice? I can't remember. Honestly, I think he should voice anything. I used to get confused between him and the guy from Princess Bride. Inconceivable. That guy. My lol was the outside. Oh, I see. Yeah. I want to see from the aliens' point of view. That is also a good idea space. I think that'd make a brilliant short story, wouldn't it? But it doesn't come with sounds. What, the words alert? The words alert? Nah. That's Ryder's thing. Do I have an emote that could use a sound alert? What have I got? Cringe. What sound alert goes with cringe? Like, or bonk. My bonk could have a little sound alert with it. Bonk. Have I got anything that I can make the sound with myself? Probably not. Jargo the parrot in Aladdin. That was it. Jargo Unchained. There we go. Bonk. Okay, everyone. Thank you for attending this. Again, there's no raid. Raid requires energy. And I barely have the energy to speak, obviously. Iago! That's right. Thank you, Eve. Sorry, yeah, it's not Jargo, it's Iago. But it's it's like that. It's Iago, I'm pretty sure. Because I think it's spelt the same way as the Shakespeare character. No, yeah, Iago. Yeah, so he's in Othello, but he's also a fictional supporting character in Aladdin. Oh my god. Did Kenneth Branagh play Iago? Oh god, look at him. Look at him, he's so different. Look at that. Oh, hang on. Gotta get rid of this. Don't need it anymore. There we go. And the question of the day is old school. Ignore. Look at this. Look at how young he is. Commander Riker thing going on. I recognise him as well. Oh, Dominic West, of course it is. But look at that. Stop looking at Kenneth Branagh. Why? I do what I want. I barely recognised him in Tenet. Oh, I knew it was him. Have you seen Wallander? Because how he appears in Tenet is pretty much how he appears in Wallander. Here he is. This is a great show. I need to watch this all again. They're really great. Swedish crime drama. You're not my supervisor. Oh, God. Oh. Hell. No. Alright, yeah. It's a good show. It's a good watch. I recommend it. The books are good as well. By Henning Mankell, who's no longer with us. You're not a twin. You can't run your own life. I've got many twins. We had this conversation at EGX yesterday. It's something that my ex said when we were together. Like every person who was vaguely tall with blonde to brown hair and wore glasses, she would say, "Oh look, it's your twin." The joke being that she was a twin, so like a legit twin. But she would always point out these other guys and say, "Oh look, it's your twin." And now I do the same thing. So yesterday I was like looking at all these nerds who look like me, and I'm just like, all my variants are here. There can be two twins only. Wait, what? Add this sound effect, Bono. Oh, Space Bunny, you want a sound effect? Bono. Is it the one that I... Wait, what? Is it the thing I said the other day? About, Here's the album. I would say go out and buy it, but I just gave it to you for free. Is it that space? 7,000 channel points well spent. I mean, you know how this works. I will add the sound effect immediately. Actually? A room full of actuallys. Oh, you know what? I even managed to quote it yesterday. When they did the cosplay bit, Uploaded custom to Discord. Okay, let's have a look. I'm opening up chatbot just for this, so for a brief moment the sound alerts will be available. Along with all the timers that it comes with. So, yeah, yesterday there was a cosplay bit, because obviously. And somebody was dressed in Skyrim Daedric armor. And I couldn't tell for certain, because it was very hard to hear, but every person had like their own custom little music track playing. And the person who did the Skyrim Daedric armor had like dialogue from like a Daedra. And I think that it was the Dremoras from Oblivion, not Skyrim. But I'm not 100% sure. But that would have been my absolute actually moment. Was there any Witcher stuff there? You know what? I didn't see any Witcher stuff. I must admit, I was primarily looking for Transformers stuff, but I did not even notice any Witcher stuff. So, I mean, there might have been a Funko, but yeah, big disappointment for any Witcher fans there. Wait, where is it, Space? Is it in the gag gaff? No? Space, where did you upload it to? Oh, Twitch Tweaks. Okay, right, let's have a listen. Let's have a listen. This is the Bono sound alert that Space wants added. Let me know if the sound file needs tweaking. Okay, hang on. Right, everyone, I'm Bono. Thank you for listening to our new album. I would say buy it, but I've just given it to you for free. Hang on. When I'm Bono. Thank you for listening to our new album. Oh, okay. I think that it cuts off when I'm saying album. Thank you for listening to our new album. Thank you for listening to my new album. I think you got Space. You got to get the bum in there. You got to get the bum in there, Space. I would say buy it, but I've just given it to you for free. Right, everyone. I don't know what that bit on the end is, but that can go. That's good though. That's good editing. But yeah, I think get the bum in there. Jesus. Get the thing off the end. It just gets worse. That is the album sped up. Is it? For real? Is that true, Space? Right, everyone, I'm Bono. Thank you for listening to our new album. I would say buy it, but I've just given it to you for free. Right, everyone. It sounds horrible. That's his new album compressed to 4 seconds. I hate it. I hate that album bit on the end. I mean, I appreciate the effort, but that's such a weird sound. I don't mind the first bit, because it's like a little joke against Bono. Because he's done it before. That's the whole point. The whole point is for it to be an awful sound. Look, I'm just thinking of people like Sithis who abuse them. Who sound alert? It's your sound alert, Space. You're right. And I do say that it can be anything you want. So, okay. Yep, a full album compressed to 4 seconds. All right. Okay, but Space, the one thing, and it's only because it's triggering me, because right, everyone, I'm Bono. Thank you for listening to our new album. I want you to put the bum in there. Can you fix that? Album. Although, hang on, I think you clicked it. Let me just listen to the clip version. Where is it? Bono. Alright, everyone, I'm Bono. Thank you for listening to our new album. Oh yeah. So you got the bum in there. I just need the bum in here. It gets worse. Oh, it gets worse. Where is it? Twitch Tweaks. There it is. Maybe as you click hard on the bum. Do I? Thank you, Eve. I knew someone was going to quote it eventually. Let me listen to the clip again. Alright, everyone, I'm Bono. Thank you for listening to our new album. There is a bit of a click in there, isn't there? A new album. New album. I mean, you could probably leave the click in there. You can, as long as you can tell that I'm saying album. Or maybe through some clever editing, you could just take out the little bit that just has the tick in it, because it's like a millisecond, if that. But that might require some work. But I will upload it for tomorrow if you can get it done by then. Yeah, as long as the bum is in there, then it's all good. Um, Thank you, Space, anyway, for that, and thank you for redeeming the sound alert request. We'll tweak it a bit and we will add it. Yeah, so as I said earlier, you will see me again tomorrow for It Takes Two with Summertime Queen. That's going to be 6 p.m. till 9 p.m. No idea if we'll finish it. Probably not, because we've only been told we're only about halfway over. Then, at the moment, Tuesday is going to be Minecraft, but yes, I am waving a pen around. Still slowly making my way to 10k. It's alright, Mute. You'll get there. I mean, don't worry. I've only turned transforms off for today. They will be back on tomorrow. Yeah, I've got a new transformer on the way that should arrive. At the moment, it says it's going to arrive on Tuesday, and if it does, it'll be a Transformers Tuesday, and I'll do the Minecraft on the Thursday instead. But keep an eye on the Discord. Keep an eye on my schedule. It'll see. We'll see. You're at 6.6k. Oh my god, Mute. That is nice. You're almost there. Less than 4,000 points left. You can do it. I believe in you. Wednesday is going to be Song of Horror. And then Friday is going to be Amnesia. And Saturday I shall be returning to the movie mornings. And we've got Zootropolis. Or Zootopia. Waiting for 6.9. Should I have a 69 point channel point redemption? That's getting a bit too J3 channel, isn't it? 69. Nice. Nice. What was I saying? Yeah, Saturday we've got Zootopia for the movie morning. Then we've got We Were Here Together with Carrot Top. And then we've got more Elder Scrolls Oblivion. And I'm probably going to take a break from the speed runs. I'm going to get back into some more combat because through different channels I got some feedback that it was getting a bit repetitive, and I think it is as well. So I think if we can just start getting some more chaos involved as I'm travelling between places, like if I get caught in the middle of a battle, then there's a chance to redeem a transform. So there's more audience engagement opportunities there. Otherwise, I'll be carrying on with the no fast travel rule, and I'll be finishing off the Mages Guild stuff in Oblivion. And then Sunday the 17th, is the spicy quiz of the year with my wonderful hosts, Eve, Adam, and Kiesko. All three of them are going to be on the quiz panel, asking me questions to which I must answer, and if I answer wrongly, I have a bit of hot sauce. And if I answer 5 questions wrongly, I have some hotter sauce on some nuggies. So that's going to be fun. And I think... do I need to get the one ship, Eve? Chaos reigns. Do I need to get the one ship? Or does the plan work? I think the one chip was a backup in case the spice is too hot for me. But I had sriracha sauce with my lunch today, and that got me. So I'm pretty sure that we can get something that has lots of spice for me. Keep some tums handy. Tums? Tums or turns? Tums. I've got enough tums. Right here. Seriously, sriracha. Look. Cap colour, black, because it's sauce shop. It's not like the sriracha with the green pointy bit. It's not that one. This is like the sauce shop's own brand of sriracha, and it is spicy. It is spicy, okay. Antacids. I don't think I'm allowed any source of comfort when I do this. It has to be pure spice. And if I get a correct answer, a little bit of milk, I think. And if it ends up that I don't suffer that much, the black cap sriracha is the spiciest. Oh, okay. But again, I don't think this is the one you're thinking of. Also, get the chip just in case. Yeah, okay. I was going to say, I could just do a... well, no, there's no point. It'll arrive in time, won't it? And it's on Amazon, so yeah, maybe I'll get it. I'll get it today. Maybe it'll arrive during the week, and I'll be able to show it off on camera. And the hot chip, and Starscream on Tuesday. All right, that's it, everyone. We're ending. I'm just rambling now. So yeah, Space, keep you posted on that sound alert. See if we can get the bum in it. But yeah, we will leave the horrible album sound in it. But I might, for that reason, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. If it gets used too much, I might have to put a cooldown on it. But then I might put cooldowns on all of them, just to be safe. You know. Because then it's not fair to have just one sound alert with a cooldown on it. I'm gonna stop talking now. I'm gonna go and lay down on the floor and cry probably, just to try and get my voice back. I have to run. It's alright, Eve. We're ending now, and we're not raiding. This VOD will go up tomorrow. Feel free to do the whole thing with the first part of the book. Catch you later or tomorrow. Indeed. See you later. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for being here. I will see you tomorrow for It Takes Two with Summertime Queen. Farewell.